Ira, we worked together for very many years in one company. Now we're still friends and we kind of working separately, but I'm very intrigued on what you're doing day by day and how you're helping the cybersecurity in the whole.
Yes, very, very exciting market that we're in, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about my views on things. So, I run a company called Kernel Advisory, which started as an advisory firm to investors for the security market. So, helping venture capital and private equity investors evaluate security companies and figure out whether they should invest in them or not. And that's also extended into helping large companies make good security decisions.
Why kernel?
Well, some people think it's, because I like popcorn, but that's not it. For me, I wanted to represent the company as something that was quite technical because I think great technology is an important differentiator in security vendors. And the kernel of an operating system is the the part that can control everything, and that a change to it can either break everything or make everything work. And so for me, that was a good representation of the types of services that we offer.
So risk is part of your job, I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about what's investment mean, because there's different type of investments and how you help or what made people know or don't know about investments that will be interesting for them to know.
Yeah, so I think investors usually are participating in the market in the past for product companies. Someone has an idea, they want to raise money in order to build that and fund the R&D until they start to get sales, and that's more of the traditional involvement of investors. But increasingly in security, more than half of the security market is services. And so investors are moving into funding services companies that may already be profitable or may want to create their own products within the services companies, or invest in later stage companies that have established some presence but want to take on an outside investor. So usually practically what it means is the founders who started a company want to bring another partner on to help fund their growth.
It makes sense that investors move to software because our world moving from hardware to SaaS as a service. So if it's SaaS as a service, then it's basically service. So it kind of makes sense. You mentioned that companies may bring somebody else. In some cases, and a lot, we see merging of companies. What does it mean?
I think ultimately it's a question of why these things happen ties back to what people want for their own companies. So if you want to grow and take on new markets, if you want to service a new subsector of security, if you're a hardware company that focuses on a pretty traditional hardware use case, but you want to start offering subscription services, you may not have the capability to do that yourself, or you may have the capability, but it's going to take you 2 years, and you can accelerate that process by acquiring or merging with another company. Now, the dance in order to get someone else to merge with you or to acquire a company is very delicate because you need to understand what the founder of the other company wants. Are they interested in continuing to run their company or stopping not running the company anymore and going to retire? Or are they interested in participating in something bigger? So understanding idea of what a founder wants out of their company and whether it aligns with your goals for your company is very important in bringing those two potentially companies together.
So there's the technical aspect, it's like one bubble. There's the business aspect, if the company make money or profitable. And there's the people aspect, I'm guessing, what the one you mentioned right
Yeah.
now.
I would say in many deals, the technical aspect comes later, as long as it generally makes sense. Security, you can attack the security market or make data secure in so many different ways. You can do it with point products, you can do it with a platform, you can do it with as a service, you can do it with standalone products. And so I think accelerating the go to market is usually a main driver for why folks are doing these types of deals, saying we want to get into a new market or we want to service a use case that we can't service today. Technical compatibility can be built or can be driven over time with packaging.
Will this be depend on the size of the company? Because if you're talking about giants like Palo Alto, Cisco, so McAfee, Symantec, in some cases they're buying a company for the future.
Well, in some cases, it's for the people. In some cases, it's for the feature. In other cases, it's to get rid of competition because smaller companies may be able to be more innovative than larger
Mhm.
companies. I guess the question is, what are you looking to do, and is there somebody that fits that mold? The size of the company does matter. If you're a small company, are you a real company or are you just a group of a few people? Is there a risk that if you decide to take a vacation tomorrow, that the company stops operating? That's not necessarily a real company yet. That's someone in their basement. That doesn't mean those things don't have value. They do have value, but something that is operating independent of the main people is more of a company where an acquirer can say, we can add that into our company and really make a difference.
Is your company or part of your services actually helping doing all the due diligence and kind of in light on the parts that maybe the company don't think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Due diligence is, the most important part, I would say, once you have a general agreement for a deal, like a letter of intent. And there's an important financial and legal aspect, which requires, lawyers and accountants in order to do that. But from a business and technology diligence perspective, you need to understand, are the claims that people have made to you true? Does the product or service do what it says it does? And you need to stress test it. You need to test it like anything else to say, do the customers love this company and product? Are the customers coming back? Are they buying more over time or are they leaving? Does this product fit well with the future of the market, not only the past? We have financial performance to tell us about the past, but we need to forecast what's happening in the future. And so part of what we do is help companies understand all aspects of that and drive that process forward for them.
Why some companies post that they have a letter of intent on being acquired? It's just self-promotion?
Well, it's a good indication that things are moving toward a deal. There's different types of letters of intent. Some are binding and some are non-binding. So if you have a binding agreement with someone, then most people will publicize that because there's PR benefits and there's execution benefits. When everybody knows about a deal, but it's not public yet, it can create a drag on execution. People aren't focused on doing their jobs and growing the company. They're focused on the distraction of a potential deal. So putting something in public is beneficial for operations, I think. It's also risky if you have a non-binding deal, but increasingly for companies that care about public sentiment, which is every company really, they want to signal to the market that they're doing a deal or at least trying to do a deal. Now, if that deal doesn't happen after they've made it public, that's something that needs to be explained from a PR perspective. But it's pretty common when there's a binding agreement for it to be made public.
Let's switch to one topic that I'm kind of focusing lately, at least in my mind, and also asking people why vendor fail in general with customers or by themselves.
I think that's such a fascinating topic, and there's many different answers. I mean, there could be maybe the primary answer, the one that is the most deadly, is if the product doesn't work. I don't think this is that common, frankly, because there's a lot of great products out there whose companies fail, even though the product does work. But let's just say if the product doesn't do what it says it's going to do, uh, vendors sometimes fail in that regard. Or if the product does, but the company can't execute on that in the market. So there's a pricing problem, there's an integration problem, or a support problem. If you make it hard for companies to use your product or service, inevitably they will leave over time. There could be a market timing side of things. So, there was a time when certain types of products and security were really hot, and then there was times when they're not, and then there's times when they're hot again.
Now everything is hot.
Browser isolation.
Browser isolation. So
There was a time, and then there wasn't, and now there's a time again. So I think timing is really important, but a great company with great people that has a kernel of good technology can be very successful if they pay attention to the market and pivot over time. And we've seen lots of companies in security do this. Just because you fit into one specific Gartner category today doesn't mean you're not going to be buying a services company tomorrow, like many of the main platforms have done.
awesome. Ira, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.